Welcome to West Country Wanderings and welcome to another one in my Lost Railway Walk series. Today we're going to be having a look at the much loved Wye Valley Railway. I'm just outside the town of Chepstow, which lies in Wales, but I'm currently in Gloucestershire, and this is the line that runs between Chepstow and Gloucester. A bit further down there was once the Wye Valley Junction. I think it's still called the Wye Valley Junction. Of course, no railway now leaves from it, but it did right up until 1990. And here, over on this side here, is a bridge carrying what would have been the line which continued on to Tintern and onto Monmouth. And it's to Tintern that we're going to be walking to today on this, the Lost Railway Walk, here on West Country Wanderings. So this route today follows what is now known as the Wye Valley Greenway, the WVG. I think we can just see it there. And it says that the tunnel should be open from the 1st of May to the 15th of August from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Well, it's now just gone 7 a.m, so by the time I've reached the front portal of the tunnel at Tidenham Tunnel, it should be open. The reason it's not open all the time, you're probably thinking, that's a bit familiar, Tidenham Tunnel. Well, we have been here before on a monthly vlog, but the tunnel was closed then, and I did say I would return to walk through it onto Tintern, so that's what we're doing today. And the reason it was closed is because of bats. There are bats in the tunnel, and they roost and nest and breed during the winter and darker months, and it's only during the summer months that the tunnel is allowed to be open. We're now walking along the path which takes us up onto the former track bed here in Gloucestershire on the Wye Valley Railway. You can just make out some old railway infrastructure just lying in the bank here. This is the footpath that takes us up, and this is the embankment that I'm walking up to. And that carried freight traffic as late as 1990, some 34 years ago. And you might be able to make out just over on there the light just trying to penetrate through, or rather the sun just trying to penetrate through this thin mist and cloud that we have here on a mid-May morning, and that's reflecting on top of the River Severn. But it's to another river, the River Wye, that our attention turns to today. I must admit that wasn't something I was expecting to see. We have rails still in situ from when this railway was running in 1990. Our footpath actually continues on in that direction, so we're now actually joining the former track bed. But there does seem to be a little bit of a path going up there though, so let's just have a quick explore. Well, I must admit I wasn't expecting to see this. Rails completely in place with concrete sleepers because it was heavy freight traffic from that quarry. I think at some point in the 1980s the sleepers here were replaced from wooden sleepers to concrete ones. And the rails and the sleepers do still seem to be in very good condition, although it is a little bit overgrown. So I'm just going to follow these rails and sleepers back in that direction to the bridge that I showed you a little bit earlier in the video. Now, unfortunately, it does seem to be getting quite jungly and overgrown in that direction, heading back down towards Wye Valley Junction, the main line, and that overbridge. And I have quite a distance to walk to Tintern and all the way back again to my car, which is parked hereabouts, that I don't have time to explore any further, and I don't want to get stuck in a load of bramble at this early stage here in the Lost Railway Walks. But yes, it's great. So you've got this section here. You can clearly make out the rails and the sleepers, and they're very much intact and in good condition. It's just obviously nature has taken over again since this section of the line closed in 1990. So I've now joined the main track bed, or the main part of the Wye Valley Greenway. That's our section of the track that I was exploring in the jungle just up there. And the first couple of things that we're coming to is the bridge over the A48. The original railway bridge was destroyed, probably blown up to allow those larger lorries to go through the main trunk road there, heading up towards Gloucester. And when the Greenway opened just a few years ago, they put in a new bridge to enable continuous line of it, but I think quite a bit of the original one does still exist in terms of abutment. So we're walking on that, and then we'll come to our main point of interest, which is the Tidenham Quarry, although I won't be able to show it you. As I mentioned in the vlog when I was in this area previously just over a year ago, it was the National Diving Centre after the quarry closed in 1990, because obviously when the quarry closed it filled up with water, so it was suitable for using for diving. After that closed, there was an issue because I think there was some safety issues with the diving centre, and several people sadly lost their lives there in diving accidents, separate diving accidents. So the centre closed. It was rebought by, well, we're not too sure who by, but it's now used as a testing centre for living underwater in these strange pods. Yes, it's all a bit mysterious, and security around the site is very, very high. So I ain't going to try and get in there, but that's where there was a spur and a branch off this branch of the Wye Valley Railway, which headed into Tintern Quarry. And as I say, that was the last section of this line to close in 1990. So back there, main line to Gloucester, Wye Valley Junction, heading up to Tidenham Quarry. The line continues on to Tintern, which is to say where we're heading through after going through Tidenham Tunnel, which we'll be going through. We'll see what we can see of that. There was a branch off it as well at Tintern, and we'll see what we can see at that section as well here on this Lost Railway Walks here on West Country Wanderings. Like I usually do, as we go on our walk, I'll tell you a little bit more about the history, and where I can, I'll try and introduce some of the old photographs if I can find some. I've got a couple of books which cover this area, and I think they're out of copyright now, so hopefully I should be able to insert those as well to give you a flavour of what this line was once like. Good to see one of the original marker posts here. That's a find, isn't it? It's usually just bits of old broad gauge and fencing, but you can even make out the numbers there. 111. I'm not sure if that's to do with the gradient of this section of the line. I think it probably is 1 in 111, I would have thought. So this is our bridge, the former bridge, railway bridge, that once carried the Wye Valley Railway up until 1990 over the A48, which is just down there below here. That going through there, it's quite a busy road connecting, well, it sort of connects the Midlands to South Wales really, although traffic now mainly uses the M5, should I say, and the A449, isn't it? I think it gets down to Newport, but this is an alternative to that, and it gets very, very busy if the motorways close up, the M50 or M5 run into trouble, then traffic heads this way. So we're going to leave the traffic behind and head now across towards Tidenham Quarry. Actually, I've just spotted, you can see part of the quarry development in there. Lots of pod cabins set up, so I think that's where they're doing their research. But as I say, we won't be able to see the quarry itself. We might be able to see the turn out of the way off the main line heading towards Monmouth, where it went into Tidenham Quarry to serve that large stone. I think it was a limestone quarry. I'll check on that and put that in the usual way below. Now I think it's around here that our turnout to Tidenham Quarry would have been, but it's been re-landscaped since the line was closed. We have a nice little carving there which says that we've got 4 miles to go to get to Tintern, so it's actually about 7.5 kilometres our route today. So I've already done about 3/4 mile. So the quarry goes down in that direction. I think there would have been a couple of sidings there, one heading up that way like a head shunt and then going off into the quarry. I think that was the layout, but if I can find an old photograph of what that once looked like, I'll put that in below. Now here there's a very large clump of rock which would have come out of this Tintern Quarry here, and I don't think this is limestone. It's a very pinkish hue to it. I always find that a difficult word to say. And it's quite substantial, almost like an ironstone rock, or looks like there's traces of iron in the rock. As I say, I'll check on that and give you the exact name of what came out of this quarry if I can. Now just up ahead of me, it looks like we have loads of rails, which probably came from the sidings that served this area and the turnout into Tintern Quarry here. And yeah, they've just obviously took them up, I would guess, when this greenway was constructed. Oh, in case you're wondering where the rails were that I was talking about earlier, they're here stacked up on the bank here, and I think they were removed when the greenway was opened, or rather constructed, ready for it to become a cycleway through to Tintern. As you've already probably gathered from the section I was walking along there, this is the site of the first station on the line after leaving the town of Chepstow in Wales. Here we are in Gloucestershire, of course, and this served the village of Tidenham, which I visited when I was doing the vlog in the area. And this was the platform here at Tidenham. And again, I'll see if I can find a photograph of what the station originally looked like. It opened in 1876, as did the whole of this Wye Valley Railway line, and I'll come on a bit more to the construction of this line in a bit. But it closed in 1959. But as I say, there was lots of railway activity in terms of freight that continued on right through until 1990, including this large area which would have been part of the station yard originally. And the entrance to the quarry is just down there. And I don't know if there was another little spur a bit further on, because it's a very, very big quarry. But you can see lots of railway remnants in there, as well as the aforementioned rails. You can see bits of sleepers and other bits and pieces as well. So it's really fascinating in terms of looking at the old railway infrastructure here on the Wye Valley Railway. How did this line come about though? Well, plans for the line actually were first mooted around the 1860s, around 1865. And since the railway entered South Wales, of course railways in South Wales, they go back a long, long time. I wouldn't hazard a guess if I can tell you the very first date, because there were lots of tramways serving the very many collieries in the South Wales area, in the South Wales valleys. But in terms of main line, of course, it was Brunel. Originally it would have come off via Gloucester, heading down. And then, of course, the Severn Tunnel was built. And when all that was happening, all those constructions, projects happening, they were thinking about linking up this part of South Wales, stroke Gloucestershire, into the Midlands, and thought the best way of doing that was having a line striking up through the Wye Valley. Unfortunately, the plans didn't really come to fruition. Now, often on my channel, I ask for shout-outs, because sometimes I have no idea what I'm looking at, and this is the occasion here outside Tintern Quarry entrance on the Wye Valley Railway. We have this corrugated sheeting. Is it covering up a cave, or perhaps mining in the area? I don't know, or maybe it was an offshoot of the quarry. If you do know, please drop a comment below. That's not the only poster I've got for you. Right next to this sheeting, and I can't quite see what it's covering up, is this. You can see that there. I have absolutely no idea what that is either. In terms of earliest railways in this part of the Forest of Dean, the far southeastern corner, should I say, of the Forest of Dean, this was by far not the first railway. The railway started with plateways around the town of Lydney, something we have covered a little bit before, and we will explore more in that area, not least of which we've got the Lydney Canal to do. So they opened in 1810, and it was because of that people were thinking about other areas they could open to serve the various industries and quarrying and mining right throughout the Forest of Dean. The plateway at Lydney was converted to broad gauge around 1860, and of course that is now part of the Dean Forest Railway Heritage Line, which we have covered previously here on West Country Wanderings. Now, a definitive plan was formulated in 1865, starting from the Monmouth end there were plans to have a new railway linking up with the Colford, Monmouth and Usk railway going right into the heart of Wales there. And we have touched on that line before when I had a look at the Colford Museum in the heart of the Forest of Dean. They have a wonderful museum there looking at, well, based in the former GWR goods shed, and they got a signal box, although that was moved from elsewhere. I think it was down from Somerset at Coglode Junction down there on the main line near Taunton. So all these things interconnect, don't they? So they wanted to develop it from there, and the original plan was to follow the River Wye completely. But the River Wye is not by any means a straight river. It is very sinuous, lots of S-bends, and that is not very productive in terms of building a railway. Yes, you can follow the contour, making it nice and flat, but it also makes it rather lengthy and also long journeys. So later on they decided to choose this route, which meant various embankments and the tunnel that we're walking to now. Here we have some more rails again coming through there. I think they were just that section there has just been slewed off to the side to clear this to make the cycle track, or the cycle path should I say. And the tunnel that we're coming to actually didn't close in terms of railway use not until 1981. You're probably thinking, why 1981? Well, we've mentioned 1959 because that was when the station at Tidenham closed, although that stub there from the Wye Valley line or junction went into Tintern Quarry until 1990. 1959 the station closed, so no passengers on it. But there was another quarry, and that's the other side of Tidenham Tunnel. That was a mouthful, Tidenham Tunnel, which didn't close until 1981. So you had in fact two separate freight services, one serving Tidenham Quarry and the other one serving Tintern Quarry. And they were carrying on right through into the 1980s. Now, construction of this line was not going to be an easy ride, excuse the pun there. The Act of Parliament was passed in the August of 1866, raising capital, some £230,000 of shareholder money was raised to establish funds. However, 3 months prior to that, an important bank, a merchant bank which was providing funds for shareholder capital, decided, well, it basically ran out of money just 3 months prior to it, which meant that the plans to build the line were put on hold. They needed to recapitalise and regain investments again, and that meant delays, a very, very lengthy delay before this line could start being constructed. We've now reached the site of a halt, Netherhope Halt, another mouthful, and you can see remains of the gate there. So this would have been the steps would have come down there from the footpath down here to what would have been, well, probably just a rudimentary affair. And I think I do have a photo of this halt as well, because you can actually see the portal of the tunnel, which I also can just to the right of me. So I apologise now that the footage may go a bit grainy as we enter Tidenham Tunnel. About to enter the tunnel, but it does say no light, so there are some very dim lights, similar to what we came across when we did the two tunnels Greenway to the south of the Bath on the Somerset and Dorset Railway. So I wouldn't be able to do pieces to camera in there. So I'll see you on the other side of the tunnel. Well, that was an amazing experience. I didn't notice it on the other one, but I think they were there, but I forgot to point it out. You have these bats on the top of the gates there, which is a really nice, stylised approach to what's in there. Didn't see any bats though. I did see some, get this the right way around, stalagmites on the floor of the tunnel. And when I go back the other way, when I walk back into my car, I'll see if I can pick those up. I'll change my lens over and see if I can use some long shutter speed shots to show you what they look like, because they were incredible. So now I've come out of the tunnel. As well as being an amazing experience walking through, it's much longer, and I'll give you the full details in a moment, than the two tunnels greenway that we saw there. Well, it seemed to be anyway. I'm not sure the exact thing. I'll do a comparison and put it in below when I tell you about the details of the tunnel. You've got this interesting area here, and they've utilised all of the sleepers that were running through the tunnel, and there's loads more banked up on that side there, so you get a real sense of the railway heritage in this area. Also here you have the River Wye. Probably won't come out very well, but through the trees there you have the River Wye. That's our first glimpse of the river that we've seen on our Lost Railway walk today. Now if you remember in our story back there, we were talking about the company that went bankrupt, the bank. They were called Overend Gurney and Company, and they went bankrupt in May of 1866. Meaning this was struggling. Though the Act of Parliament had been passed in 1866, in August they had a deadline to get the railway done. And because of that bank failure on this line and many other railway lines, proposed railway lines, they couldn't get the money together to start construction. So they had to go back to Parliament again and have another Act of Parliament. And that took place in 1871, formulating the Wye Valley Railway. They proposed it based on the fact that the Severn Tunnel was about to open and they could get goods coming down from the northwest following the line down to Monmouth and then Chepstow and then back through that way. However, it was still struggling to get that money. In fact, construction didn't start until 1875 in Tintern, right in the middle of the line where we're going to today. I'm really enjoying this Lost Railway walk. It's probably the best one I think I've been on since I started doing this series. I think this one is number 13 in the series. It's number 2 also in the Forest of Dean series. But there's just so much railway heritage to hear, including this line-side hut. And you can make out the original fireplace inside the line-side hut here, right next to the Wye Valley Railway. How cool is that? Now, Tidenham Tunnel also has another name called Den Hill, which is a bit strange because it's marked as a different spelling certainly on my OS map, and I'll put the alternatives to that so you can work it out. But I think these days pretty much everyone knows it as Tidenham Tunnel. It was originally planned to be 654 metres in length. I think that's 715 yards. But by the time it had been completed, it was much longer than that. Oh, we've got another rail here, just as I'm talking to you. Quite a length of rail there. That's not its original position. Well, I don't think it would have been, because that's on that side. It's a bit too wide for that. But they left that in situ as a nice feature here. It was actually 1,100 and something yards. It was I think it was 1074 metres, which I think is about 1,177 yards, so something of that order. If that's wrong, I'll put it in below. So it's an additional couple of hundred, or several, about 300 or so metres. My brain's gone there, 300 and something metres than it was originally planned to be, which meant the construction costs went up for the line. It was originally planned to be £260,000, but by the time they'd finished, the costs were £315,000, and most of that was spent on Tidenham Tunnel here in Gloucestershire. Now, as well as the costs for the tunnel itself, you can see there's quite a bit of heavy engineering and construction here as well. Quite a deep cutting face here, so that would have added to the costs as well, as it made its way south from the village of Tintern in Wales, and also the bridge to get it over the River Wye, of which we'll see part of it towards the end of our video today. Now, though we haven't got to the site of Tintern Quarry yet, you can see that quarrying has taken place over the past couple of hundred years, maybe more, all on this side of the railway line here on the Wye Valley Railway, including some caves, so they would have buried in a bit further I think that was part of the quarry. Unfortunately, I don't want to scramble up the rocks to have a look in, and it's probably not safe anyway. The other thing I forgot to mention just before I was entering Tidenham Tunnel, the first portal I went in, should I say, is that there's a blue plaque there. I think I took a photo of it. I'll include that now if I did, which shows it won a Railway Heritage Award in 2022. The tunnel wasn't actually reopened until 2021 to complete the Wye Valley Greenway, so only about 3 years or so. So it's still relatively new. So if you haven't checked it out and you're holidaying in around the Wye Valley and the Forest of Dean, and highly recommend you do because it's a beautiful area, then certainly want to check out Tidenham Tunnel. And I think it was opened, or officially opened, by the Duke of Gloucester I think about a year later, obviously delayed because of, the pandemic that we had around those strange days. The delights of this line just keep getting better and better, don't they? Now we have some original buffer stops. I've now reached the site of Tintern Quarry as well. Tintern Quarry is huge and goes way, way, way up there. Certainly got no plans to go in there. There is a new bank here. I don't think that bank would have been originally there. And this would have been where, round about here, the turnout would have been serving the quarry. As I say, trains were running here up till late as 1981, but I think now it's private, and it looks like there's a private residence just at the face of the quarry. Well, not completely at the face, but near it. So I'm not going to be able to get in there. But again, if I've got any old photographs of Tintern Quarry or the trains coming out thereof, sorry about the flare then, and I will put that in round about now. So yeah, there we have a confirmation sign there. If you can just see that, danger, keep out. So there's a gate there. So that would have been the entrance to Tintern Quarry from the direction of Tintern. Let's say, I think it was around by those buffer stops. That's the marker point for our turnout from the Wye Valley line, which went into Tintern Quarry itself. I'm not sure if it's the same sort of rock that is at Tidenham Quarry. I keep calling it Tidenham Quarry, and I think it had another name as well. I'll put that in below because I can never remember it. But yeah, so it may have been a different rock. But you can see it's now pretty much all been worked out. Sorry about for the lens flare there, but it is a huge site, but obviously dangerous to go in. But there does seem to be some kind of property in there, so I'm not entirely sure I know what's going in there. There's probably, again, water in the bottom of it, because often these derelict quarries do tend to fill up with water, and they can be very dangerous places to explore. The original proposal for the line was to serve Tintern. I can't remember whether it's a town or a village in Wales there, but we'll be going close to it by the end of the video at least. But the construction costs and the fact that they rerouted the line slightly meant that when it was rebuilt or started construction around 1874, it meant that the line was going to be probably about a mile away from the village / town. The station building still stands, magnificent signal box there. I'm hoping to do a separate video on that, so that'll follow this one because it's a delightful spot in itself. I'm sure if you're in around this area, this part of Gloucestershire or South Wales, you're already familiar with it, but if you're not, I will include that as a separate video because it's well worth seeing and it completes our story, of course, although it does lie just outside the West Country Wanderings area in Wales. They appealed to the owners of the Wye Valley Company that they needed to do, sorry, I need to swap my hands over, my arm's aching, they needed to swap over the line because it was some way from the line. And there was also industrialists in the area, in particular the owner of a wire works making wire in the area. That's something we come across in the Lidbrook area before when we're looking in that section there, wasn't it, that big wire factory there. And they protested. And amazingly, the Wye Valley Company agreed to build a branch off this line going to the heart of the village, known as the Wireworks branch. So I'm struggling with the sunlight here this morning. So the Wireworks branch was actually constructed around about the same time as the work for the main course of the line between Monmouth and Tintern. And it involved a bridge, another bridge across the Wye to take it right into the heart of Tintern itself. The Wye Valley Company didn't actually run that branch themselves, but they leased it to the landowners with the agreement that they could actually run their own trains, or their trains on it, or freight on it, just for free. So they had to undertake that themselves. But it seemed to work really, really well. think you'll agree this is a really beautiful railway line. It must have been amazing to have travelled upon it. I certainly would have loved to have done that. And it's a shame it didn't remain open as a heritage line after the freight trains disappeared, because Tintern, as I've mentioned before, and this part of the Wye Valley, the lower Wye Valley, is where tourism started. Yes, world tourism started right here on the borders between Gloucestershire in England and Wales. About the rest of the line though, we know it headed out to Monmouth. Well, at Monmouth there were 3 lines that came in, and one of those we've covered before, and that was the line between Monmouth and Ross-on-Wye. We looked at a section of that as it goes around Welsh Bicknor and Symonds Yat, including the portal of Symonds Yat Tunnel. And again, that's a beautiful area, and I'll link to that video in case you've not seen that one at the end of this one. We've also covered another section of this line specifically in one of my monthly vlogs. In one of those I went to the beautiful village of Redbrook, which sits right on the River Wye, deep in the Wye, and it's a section of this line that runs north from Tintern before it gets to Monmouth, and there it crosses an amazing viaduct which is still in place and now a footpath. And again, if you've not checked that video out, I'll link to that one at the end of this video. What are the line's fortunes after it opened? Well, going back to the Wireworks branch, that was ready before the main section of this Wye Valley line was ready. So it was ready, I think, around about 1874. But unfortunately, the Wireworks that it had planned to serve actually closed in the same year. So it had no industrial use. And the planned station to serve the town of Tintern, or village, I'm not sure, that never materialised either. There was another factory opened in the 1880s, and the line was used after that. But that again closed in the early part of the 20th century, and then the branch, the Wireworks branch, remained dormant. But it has got an impressive bridge which has been restored recently, and that's what I'm hoping to walk across to make our entrance into Tintern. The bridge that this line went on, or shall I say this line went on a bridge across the River Wye, sadly that's no longer in existence, but hopefully we'll be able to get up close to where it was. The line's fortunes of this line also did not meet expectations. They were hoping for trade from the northwest and the Midlands down to South Wales, but it just simply didn't materialise. The traffic either took the line down from Gloucester towards Chepstow and Newport, or down the Midland Main Line and then through the Severn Tunnel, which it still does to this day. In fact, if you go to Gloucester Station, while I was there, you can see Tesco trains going through it there, making their way up and down from South Wales. Also steel from Newport and lots of oil, that sort of thing. So it's still used as a freight, but this one didn't carry it. You're probably thinking, have I arrived back at Tidenham Tunnel? No, this is the second of the 2 tunnels on the Wye Valley line, and it's much shorter than Tidenham Tunnel. There's no plans to restore this one, although it looks like some people have actually broken the fence there and tried to walk it. It's not lit. I think it's about 160 or so metres long, so just 1/10 of the length of the much grander and bigger Tidenham Tunnel, although this would have eaten into the costs of constructing the Wye Valley line, but the front portal of it remains in amazing condition. That's worth pointing out at this point, that's our Tintern Tunnel there, and if you can just see that, that's just back that way. The Wye Valley Greenway diverges away from the route of the Wye Valley Railway at this point, so it just goes on that way, because we're going to be crossing over the bridge that I mentioned for the Wireworks branch, as I say, because the other one simply doesn't exist. And as I say, there's no plans to restore Tintern Tunnel. But it's really strange, although it's a shorter tunnel, I'm not sure if it's because it's got a curve in it, but I couldn't see light literally coming through the other end of it, so I'm not sure if it's blocked at the other end of the portal. And here we get our first glimpse of Tintern Abbey, magnificent Tintern Abbey, which is in the I think of Cadw, C-A-D-W. It's like the Welsh version of English heritage. But of course that lies just outside of the West Country Wanderings area, but we will have a look at Tintern Station, but I'll drop that in as a separate video. This Wireworks bridge looks in far better condition than the last time I went over it. It had some very rickety bases to it, and it's wonderful to see it restored and repainted again fully over the River Wye. And now with the magnificent Tintern Abbey behind me, that's it for today here on one of my lost railway walks in Forest of Dean, but here just outside the West Country Wandering region, over at the border in Wales. A beautiful spot here. The Wye Valley is wonderful. You can actually do the walk as a circular walk, so you can follow the railway track up from the direction of Chepstow, crossing over the Wireworks branch bridge and then heading back down on the Wye Valley path back down to Chepstow again, so it makes a nice circular walk. I won't be doing that though. I'm going to head back down through Tidenham Tunnel because I want to capture some more photographs, so you probably would have already seen most of them, but I'll close the video with some more of them now. But you're probably thinking, what happened to our story with the line? Well, suddenly it didn't meet its expectations or fulfill its expectations economically in terms of freight traffic. The last passenger train ran in 1959. I do forget the date, but I'll put that in below. And some goods continued on for the full section of the line from Monmouth to Chepstow, right from 1959 until up to the line's closure in 1964, a year then many lines closed across the whole of the United Kingdom, of course. Rather sad that, but it did have a little bit life beyond that. As we said, there was the quarry at Tintern, which carried on being rail served from this railway until 1981, and the quarry at Tidenham Quarry, which carried on right through until 1990. And as I say, it's wonderful to see those rails in place, complete with those concrete sleepers right at the start of our walk today. Hope you've enjoyed it today. I wonder if you can answer that point about the corrugated sheeting and that weird object. It looks like maybe something to do with mining, I don't know, but love to know your thoughts on that. Please drop a comment below. Even if, of course, if you've visited, I'm sure many of you visited Tintern Abbey. It's one of the most famous beauty spots in the whole of the United Kingdom. But if you've completed part of this walk yourself, I'd love to hear from you. And it's great now. You can do the whole thing now that the Tidenham Tunnel has been restored and the Wireworks Bridge has completely been restored too, making a complete through route here to Tintern from Chepstow. Until next time, take care of yourselves, look after yourselves, and I hope to see you on the channel again very soon. All the best for now. Bye-bye.